Good evening. I'm Jan Catrell, representing the League of Women Voters, Bellingham, Whatcom County. Founded in 1920, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization with 800 affiliates across the country. It encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League never endorses candidates or political parties. Membership is open to men and women of all ages, and we invite you to join us. This forum is recorded by Robert Clark and the Center for New Media and will be viewable on BTV Bellingham, the City of Bellingham's YouTube channel, on our League website, and through our social media channels. Our media partners are the Linden Tribune and the Northern Light. We thank our partners for their generous support and encourage you to thank them as well. Before we get started, please make sure phones and other electronic devices are silenced and all computer notifications are turned off. Tonight, we host the candidates for Whatcom Superior Court Judge, Position 4. There are 3 candidates on your ballot for this race. I'll introduce the candidates in alphabetical order. Please raise your hand when I call your name. Candidate David E. Freeman. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Candidate Carl Munson. Thank you, Mr. Munson. And candidate Jim Nelson. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Whatcom County Superior Court is one of 39 Superior Courts in Washington. Whatcom County has 4 Superior Court judges elected to 4-year terms and 3 court commissioners. Judges and commissioners hear and decide cases assigned to them by the presiding judge. The presiding judge supervises the judicial business of the Superior Court, acts as the spokesperson for the court, directs the court administrator in implementing administrative and general court policy, and performs judicial and administrative duties. The annual salary for a Superior Court judge is $199,675. We will follow the specific rules for the forum. Candidates will make a 2-minute opening statement. They will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question and will make a 1-minute closing statement. Michelle Kopcha and Carol Como will be tracking the time. Please note the timer screen, which begins green as it counts down. It turns yellow when 15 seconds remain. When it turns red, time is up. So please stop talking. We ask that candidates be respectful of the time allotted. If you speak beyond the time limit, your microphone may be muted, but you will hear a bell when the stop sign shows. Questions have been prepared in advance by League members, and each candidate will be asked to respond to the same question. The order of the candidates has been determined in advance by the League organizers to ensure a random and fair sequence. Candidates, please remain in gallery view so that you can see the timer screen. So with the rules covered, let's get started. Candidates, can you see the timer screen? Very good.
Yes.
Are our timers ready? I assume they are. So please remember to unmute your microphone when I call your name for responses. And we'll begin with your 2-minute opening statement. Candidate Nelson, please give us your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you. So my name is Jim Nelson. I have been a lawyer in Washington State for over 31 years now. I've literally handled thousands of cases. I believe passionately in justice. I have a passion for justice. That's why I went to law school. I believe that lasting peace in our community is not possible without justice in the courtrooms. I have done prosecution and defense. I have extensive experience in working with children, both in the dependency process and as a guardian ad litem. And I've also defended children in juvenile court. I believe in protecting the integrity of the office of a judge for Whatcom County. And therefore, I made the decision that I'm going to finance my own campaign and that I am not going to ask for endorsements from anyone, because I believe that just does not look good to people when they come into court to look up at a judge and know that the party on the other side, whether it's the prosecutor's office or whether it's some other agency, endorse the judge's campaign. I want them to look up at the judge and say, this person is totally free from influence by anyone. And it is an influence when you receive endorsements from, say, the sheriff's office or the prosecutor's office, or council members, because we all citizens have all different kinds of cases that come in from this Superior Court. Some of them are being sued for condemnation of their property or some type of a code violation. And I think they need to look up at a judge and see a judge that is totally impartial and not swayed by an endorsement or an obligation for an. I see the stop sign.
Thank you, Candidate Nelson. Candidate Freeman, will you please unmute your microphone and begin your 2-minute opening statement?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Whatcom County Superior Court Judge David Freeman, and I'm running to retain my seat for position 4. I was appointed by Governor Inslee upon the seat being vacated by now Justice Raquel Montoya Lewis, who I'm happy to say has endorsed me as the person to replace her. Briefly about me, I was born and raised in Olympia, and prior to my appointment, I worked as an administrative review judge for the state of Washington. It's an expression of gratitude to my father, who held the same position before he became severely disabled when I was young. My mother had to re-enter the workforce after a 20-year gap to support her family and make sure that my father received proper care. All this while suffering from the same eye disorder that I also am afflicted by. At 15, I was told that I was going blind, and I braced myself for limited career options. As I struggled, I was reached out by a blind federal administrative law judge who talked to me and basically reinforced with a scared teen that a fulfilling career in the law was still an option. When I arrived at Western Washington University, as an undergrad, I knew Bellingham was my home, and I returned shortly after law school. My community service includes time being on the board of directors of a local nonprofit, representing the best interests of children as a guardian ad litem in dependency matters, and volunteering with the local food bank. I married a Canadian. We adopted 2 blind deaf dogs, which I'm sure if you listen to carefully in the background, you'll hear barking. I spent the last 5 years of my career as the first 5 years of my career as a deputy prosecuting attorney, gaining significant experience in trial work and criminal law. I spent the last decade as a decision maker in the role of administrative review judge and as a pro tem, which is just a fancy word for a substitute judge. But in those 10 years, I substituted in every jurisdiction in Whatcom County. I remain pledged to bring the same fair, unbiased, and compassionate approach to the Superior Court bench that has defined my career and upbringing. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Freeman. Candidate Munson, will you please unmute your microphone and give us your 2-minute opening statement? You need to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes.
I just wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for outsmarting the coronavirus and being able to organize this forum. A little bit about me. I am a lifelong Washington resident. I was born and raised in Yakima. Married my incredible wife 20 years ago this October. We have 2 wonderful kids that I would love to take up all my time and brag about, but I know that's not what we're here for. I believe my experience is my strong suit here. I've practiced law for 23 years. 19 of those have been in superior courts. I've been practicing in Whatcom County Superior Court specifically for the last 16 years. I've worked every level of court here, municipal court, district court, juvenile court, and of course Superior Court. I've argued a handful of cases in our Court of Appeals. I've worked in almost every court in Whatcom County. I've been a prosecutor. I practice criminal defense. I also handle civil cases, specifically representing injured workers in workers' compensation claims, personal injury, and Social Security claims. Over the last 23 years, I've had some unique assignments. One, I was the Nooksack Tribal Defender for 3 years. I was a senior deputy in our sexual assault and felony domestic violence unit in Yakima County Prosecutor's Office, and I was a special prosecutor handling drug and alcohol commitment hearings. And I've also been a pro tem judge for the last 10 years. As a result, I have an innate ability to assess cases from every angle because I've worked them from every angle. And I do have a lot of ideas that I'd like to bring to the court, and I hope I get a chance to maybe talk about some of those in the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Munson. So we're going to begin the questions. There may be 5 questions depending on the time that we're allowed. And each person in each round will be answering the same question. So the question, you have 1.5 minutes for your responses. Question 1 is, as a prospective judge, what do you consider your greatest strengths? Candidate Freeman, will you please unmute your microphone and give us your answer?
Thank you. I think my greatest strengths as a current judge are my ability to listen. I think it's something that is reflected in my background, my upbringing, and my career over the last 15 years. I think that's one of the most important things as a judge is to be a good listener. It also requires patience and the ability to treat everyone with dignity and respect, which should just be a given with the courts. But I believe that I have a track record of that with now 10 years of experience as a pro tem judge and a full-time administrative law judge. I also believe that my experience handling a variety of cases, including being a volunteer guardian ad litem in dependency matters, being a pro tem commissioner for Superior Court for a number of years, handling anything from dependencies to ex parte motions to criminal law matters, makes me exceptionally well qualified for the position. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Freeman. Candidate Munson, would you please unmute your microphone and give your answer to question number 1?
Yeah, I also agree that one of my strengths is my ability to listen. I also believe my strengths is my broad experience, especially working with clients and in the criminal cases. I think it's invaluable to have that experience of having clients and standing with them in court when the rulings come down, and you have to sit and explain to them what has happened, why it happened. And so it gives you a perspective, another perspective when you're on the bench and the people come before you. I think another strength is a passion for justice, for equal justice. My experience for the last 15 years representing indigent clients who present some of the greatest barriers to equal justice in our courts, including poverty, mental health conditions, drug and alcohol addictions, homelessness. Having helped those clients, I think it gives me a unique perspective that I can bring to the bench.
Thank you, Candidate Munson. Candidate Nelson, will you please unmute your microphone and make an answer to question number 1?
Thank you. Yes, I believe my overall strength is that I've been doing this for so long, and I have worked in every type of court in the state, whether it's municipal district, Superior Court of Appeals, and the state Supreme Court. I currently I've done many appeals in the Court of Appeals, and I currently have a case pending in there now. I've also represented a client in the United States Supreme Court. So I think all the cases that I've been handling for the first 8 years of my career was as a prosecutor. And for the last approximately 22 years of my career, I've worked almost exclusively in indigent representation. So people that didn't have the ability to pay. One of the pluses of doing that is you get to really understand what's going on out there in the community of homelessness and mental health and victims of all types of violence. And so it's a real plus that I had so much work to do. I was constantly busy, and you just can't get that kind of experience in a few short years, I believe. So I also think that when you look at my experience in the Superior Court with dependency clients, I represented.
Thank you, Candidate Nelson. I'll read to you question number 2. Each person will answer this question. Please describe any pro bono or community service activities you have been involved in, or other ways you have worked to contribute to this community that you wish to serve. Candidate Munson, you have 1.5 minutes. Please unmute your microphone.
Thank you. My volunteer work, community service work, includes, for the last few years, working with Toys for Tots during the Christmas season. It's an opportunity actually for me and my son. We do Toys for Tots. We also volunteer with the local Meals on Wheels program. We volunteer with the Bellingham Community Meal Program, and my daughter joins us when we do that. So we do have volunteer work that we enjoy doing because we get out and meet the people. And it's a very good opportunity for my kids to see people who may not live the same lifestyle that they get to live. As far as pro bono work, I do indigent cases from the Public Defender's Office, conflict cases. That's pretty much almost solely the defense work that I do, and I've handled hundreds, if not thousands, of those cases. So that's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Munson. Candidate Nelson, will you please give us your answer for question number 2? Remember,
Yes, thank you. So I have done pro bono work. I enjoy doing that. My latest pro bono was representing a child of a dependency parent that I represented. And she called me out of the blue. The case has been dismissed years ago to help her son. He wanted to get into the United States Marine Corps. And since I am a former United States Marine, I knew how positive that's going to be for his life. I mean, extremely positive. And so we had some legal matters that we had to clear up, and we cleared that path so to enable him to get in. And I'm very happy about that. I also have been involved in theater in Bellingham. I'm a member of the Idiom Theater, and I also have performed theater in Bellingham, and used a lot of young people from the area and gave them some very good experience, I think, life experience. I've also been a member of the co-op here since I arrived in Whatcom County over 20 years ago, and I believe in their mission. I also am a blood donor. I've donated many gallons of blood over the years, and that's another thing that I feel very positive about.
Thank you, Candidate Nelson. Candidate Freeman, you have 1.5 minutes. Please unmute your microphone.
Thank you. With respect to the volunteer work, I've been engaged with the Whatcom County community for essentially the entire time that I've lived here. I served for a number of years as a board member on the Lydia Place board, addressing homelessness in our community. I also helped, along with my wife, she's the one who got us hooked into this, but helping with the food bank locally with their garden program. So every January we'd be delivered thousands upon thousands of seed packets, which would then take over our living room for about 2 weeks. Additionally, I was a fundraiser for the Vision Walk for a number of years, and I used it as a way to engage other members of my direct community and my legal community to educate them on issues regarding blindness and difference of abilities. When it comes to direct pro bono work, I was somewhat limited because I have served as an administrative law judge for about 10 years and a pro tem judge. But I did volunteer as a guardian ad litem dependency cases. So I worked with children and represented their best interests in dependency court as a volunteer guardian ad litem for a number of years for Whatcom County as well. In addition, I also served as a guest judge for both teen court and, at least on one occasion, a judge for a local mock court group as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Freeman. Let me read you question number 3. Access to justice is a concept that everyone is entitled to under the protections of the law. What have you done to improve access to justice? Candidate Nelson, will you begin?
Well, the first thing I've done, and most important thing I've done, is done my part in representing indigents and representing them well, not just treating them differently than any other cases. They're very, very important cases. Every person that comes in before court has a case that is very, very important to them, and it should be important to their attorney as well, regardless of whether they're being paid or not. So I really believe in access to justice. As I said before, I've done 22 years almost exclusively in indigent representation, and I can tell you that it's very rewarding for an attorney, although it's not something that you make a lot of money at. But I never was really interested in the money. And when I went to law school, right now I'm working as a public defender, and I'm very proud of doing that. And so I have the ability, here to have a lot of cases and to work them well. And when a client says to me, "Thank you, no one's ever represented me like that before, no one's ever cared before," that is very rewarding, and it's something I recommend for all attorneys. So it's really part of my passion. When I see homeless people, when I see people with mental health problems, I care about them. I worry about them because it's a cold world out there.
Thank you, Candidate Nelson. Candidate Freeman, will you unmute your mic and answer this question?
Thank you. First off, I agree with much of what candidate Nelson just indicated as far as people entering the court system and the fact that every case is extremely important to the person involved. And I've always taken that to heart as an administrative law judge and as a pro tem, that whether it's a traffic infraction or a criminal felony matter, they're all important to the people involved. And I think that is a basic level of access to justice. It's just letting people know that they're being heard And when they leave the courtroom, that they know that their story was heard, and whether they agree with me or not, I've given them an explanation as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And they know, again, that I considered their position. Additionally, my work as a volunteer guardian ad litem, I believe, directly assists in access to justice. It's giving a voice and to children in dependency matters and their best interests. It's conveying to the court and being the eyes and the ears for the court and children that can be in pretty difficult situations. And acting in that behalf was one of the most rewarding positions in my career, quite frankly, was being a volunteer guardian ad litem. And it was something that was very difficult for me to give up when I took the bench this year. Beyond that, this is something that we're consistently working on as a court, whether it be economic, socioeconomic, or other social issues in order to, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Freeman. Candidate Munson, will you please unmute your microphone and answer this question?
Yeah, I actually agree with both of the other candidates a large part. In my personal experience as a pro tem judge also, whenever I hear a case, I always strive to make sure that everybody in the court gets the full and fair opportunity to have their position heard and to carefully weigh and consider those before you make a decision, and obviously apply the law fairly and consistently. Also, with my experience in our local Superior Court, representing the indigent clients who do have the greatest challenges of access to justice. Again, when low income, they have mental health issues that need to be addressed, domestic violence cases present problems that need, I think, a better system than our one size fits all. And one of my ideas that I would like to bring to the bench is a mental health court in our Superior Court. There's one in district and municipal court, but not in our Superior Court. I'd like to talk about that later.
Thank you, Candidate Munson. Let me read you question number 4. Do you think alternate sentencing is effective and something that should be expanded? And are there additional opportunities for alternative sentencing in Whatcom County? Candidate Freeman, would you please unmute your microphone and answer this question?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I do think that alternative sentencing can be effective. And I think currently we have, when it comes to sentencing itself, we have a couple of options as far as alternative dispositions regarding sodas and substance abuse alternatives. And I do think that they're effective, either residential based here in the community or prison based, where people are actually getting an evaluation and getting the things that are bringing them into the court system potentially addressed. And so I think they can be extremely effective. They keep people in our community members, and I am an advocate for that. I think additionally, you look at something that Mr. Munson just brought up, and those are therapeutic courts. And I have the opportunity to serve on a therapeutic court in juvenile court drug court. I found that extremely effective, being a sentencing alternative and giving youth the chance to essentially avoid a criminal conviction through that system. I also served, I believe, as one of the only pro tems in Bellingham Municipal Court to cover the mental health court, as Mr. Munson mentioned. Again, I found that extremely effective at stopping some of the revolving door issues that you had with individuals that suffer some pretty significant impairments, but those, between the wraparound services offered, they were staying out of the system for long periods of time. So I would certainly advocate for an expansion of that, of those treatment courts.
Thank you, Candidate Freeman. Candidate Munson, will you please answer this question?
Yes, I'm also, I agree that alternative sentencing, I support it, encourage it, and if there are other ideas out there, I would like to explore those too. I think they're very important, especially an alternative sentence such as work release or the work crews that we have here. I think those are really important because it helps people who are working to keep their jobs so that they don't lose their job if they have to serve a sentence in custody. That just compounds the problems. And as we were talking about earlier, having a mental health court in Superior Court, I would really like to explore that because in my experience, and actually just recently, I'm trying to get a client into the district court, mental health court. But it's very complicated when you have a felony trying to get it into a district court. So I think that's, we do need to expand some of the alternative sentencings, but I'm encouraged by the ones that we do have currently.
Thank you, Candidate Munson. Candidate Nelson, will you answer this question, please?
Well, I think the most important thing about this discussion that we need to remember, and remember it well, is that jails and prisons are not treatment centers. Mm-hmm. I have been frustrated over the years with people who have terrible addictions. And we're talking people that are just like everybody here watching this forum, finding themselves addicted to an extremely addicted drug, methamphetamine for once, and losing everything, losing their wife, their husband, or their children, and their house, and living out on the street. These people do not benefit from going to jail because they lock them up in the jail and the cravings just get stronger and stronger. Nobody addresses their underlying problems, and they're out again on the street with the same thing, and it happens over and over again. I think it's a terrible situation. I too have worked in mental health court. I've had many clients in mental health court, and I've had clients in the family treatment court and dependencies, and I've had clients in drug court. And one thing we have to remember about those, they've been around for years, and I think it's time we need to get more creative with what we're doing with these people, because just putting them in jail is costing the taxpayers a ton of money and getting absolutely nowhere. And a lot of these possession cases are very, very small amounts they're being prosecuted for. So somebody has residue and they're being prosecuted and sent to jail.
Thank you, Candidate Nelson. So question number 5, do you believe there is an underrepresentation of women and or people of color in the court system? If so, how would you work to correct this problem? Candidate Munson, would you please answer this question?
Yeah, I think looking at our court, there is an underrepresentation of women and people of color. And I think encouraging more people to run for office and run for judge is incredibly important. This is a unique opportunity for us this year because it's the first time in almost 10 years that the voters have gotten to vote for their judges. The last 4 judges to take the bench in our Superior Court have been appointed in periods of vacation of the bench. And now we have two elections where the voters get a chance, and I would encourage everybody with an interest to run and increase our representation of everybody on the bench.
Thank you, Candidate Munson. Candidate Nelson, will you please address this question?
Well, I certainly agree that people of color are underrepresented in our court systems. And when you think about that, you got to remember that it not just affects them, it affects all the people of color that live in the community that don't have these role models to look up to. And people on the bench or people in other positions of power that haven't lived the life and walked in their shoes and really have a good understanding of them. My wife is a Brazilian now, and we're waiting for her citizenship this year, and we're looking forward to that. But I know that, you know, when she walks down the street and she feels different when she goes into places where there are absolutely no other people of color. And one of the things Mr. Munson touched upon, and I will even take it even farther, I think as far as these elections are concerned, I think when a judge leaves the bench before the end of his or her term, like Judge Montoya Lewis did, I don't believe that the governor should be appointing them. I think that those should be open for election and just wait and keep the seat empty. And they do that in other courts all the time. How long did we wait for the Supreme Court to get the 9th judge? Well over a year. So we need to stop that. And that just adds, I think, to a lot of the frustration of people of color. They look up at that and say, well.
Thank you, Candidate Nelson. Candidate Freeman, please unmute your microphone.
Thank you. First of all, I do think diversity on the bench and in the courtroom is hugely important. I think for me personally, it was a huge impact on my career choice, quite frankly. Seeing somebody of a different ability like my own that could do the work and was doing it and doing it well made me feel like I could do it, and it inspired me. So I would imagine that it would have the same effect on other people that I identify in different categories. I will say I am proud of where we've come in Whatcom County Superior Court over the years. Just a short time ago, we had never even had a female judge, and Judge Garrett was a trailblazer in that, and she tore down those barriers and was elected 8 years ago. And from there, we went to having, for a period, three women on the bench. We now have, out of 7 judicial officers, about half that identify as people of color. I myself identify as disabled. We have another individual who identifies as gay. And I think that's wonderful. And I think that diversity brings a lot to our bench, and I hope it continues, because we've made a turn in the right direction in the last 8 years in Whatcom County, and I hope it continues to trend that way.
Thank you, Candidate Freeman. Candidates, you will have 1 minute for a closing statement. It's important that if you are not able to arrange the screen in such a way so that you can see the timer, then please listen for the bell, because the timers will be ringing the bell after 1 minute. So Candidate Freeman, will you please give your 1 minute closing statement?
Yes. Thank you for engaging in this forum and educating yourselves on the Superior Court race. In making your decision on who to support, I ask you to look at my experience, my endorsements, and my ratings to help assist you. I was heavily vetted in the appointment process, selected by the governor among a number of applicants. I've been rated by my local peers as exceptionally well qualified by the Whatcom County Bar Association. I've also gotten that highest rating from 4 minority bar associations that represents the interests of the Latino, Latina, African American, Jewish, and LGBTQT interests. I'm endorsed by my predecessor, Justice Raquel Montoya Lewis, the entire Whatcom County Superior Court bench, district court judges. Every municipal court judge that I ever pro tem'd for has endorsed me. I'm also endorsed by a broad support from the community. That includes crosses political lines. And I ask that you look at my individual community endorsements, your friends and your neighbors. And after considering my experience, my endorsements, and my ratings, I humbly ask for your vote to retain my seat on Whatcom County Superior Court.
Thank you, Candidate Freeman. Candidate Munson, you have 1 minute for a closing statement. Please unmute your microphone.
Once again, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this. It's been fantastic. I would just close by saying I'm the only candidate who has been a practicing attorney in the Whatcom County Superior Court, and I've done that for the last 16 years. For 15 of those years, I've worked day in and day out in our Superior Court representing indigent clients from the Public Defender's Office. I have handled hundreds, if not thousands, of those cases. And as we talked about, those cases typically present the greatest challenges and barriers to equal justice. And over the years, in my experience, I believe I've seen where some of the deficiencies lie and where we can improve our court so it serves everyone, including victims, offenders, and the community in general better. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Munson. Candidate Nelson, will you please answer this final, or will you give your final closing statement?
Thank you. So I practiced for 31 years, and I practiced in Whatcom County as well. I practiced in their Superior Court, their District Court, and even did some infractions in Whatcom County. I have experience in other courts throughout the states. I have experience in King County. I have experience in Snohomish County. I have experience in Skagit County and Island County. And I think that that experience makes me more well-rounded. I strongly believe that we really need to address this lack of diversity in the courts. And one of the ways that I think that we need to do it is we really need to stop these appointments by the government. I don't think that that's a good idea. I think it should immediately go to the voters. I think we should not ask anyone else for contributions when we're running for judge, or ask anyone for endorsements. You know, interestingly enough, I've seen endorsements of people in this case that don't even know me. And so how can they rationally make a decision of who would be the better person to serve the court?
Thank you, Candidate Nelson. So this concludes our forum. And I just want to say in conclusion, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, we thank all the candidates for being here today and for running for public office. Thank you very much.
Thank you.